Heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Well, at least we got to get a drink of water and a small snack between Inside Arkansas Live and the first major transfer portal announcement for the Razorbacks, which is a departure. In this case, we said that the Razorbacks were focused on retention, and sometimes that means a lack thereof with certain guys here. Big Z, Zvonimir Ivisic, is entering the transfer portal after 1 year at Arkansas, after 2 years under John Calipari. Not necessarily the most surprising news in the world, and we'll get into our reactions of how we feel about it. Curtis Wilkerson, Andrew Ellis with Inside Arkansas here with you to break it all down. But it is kind of ironic, isn't it, Andrew, that John Calipari's first commitment after taking the job at the University of Arkansas winds up being his first big piece that transfers out, and it leaves Arkansas with nothing at the 5. So a lot of front court building that has to be done, and buckle up because the Razorbacks will do it. But Big Z's out of here. Andrew, let's get your initial reaction, my man.
Well, I'd be remiss if first we just didn't say love Big Z, love his personality. I actually even love his skill set. Like I think that he's an interesting player. He's a fun player to watch, especially when he gets it going. And we saw, of course, flashes of the kind of upside he can bring and the type of shot making and just way he can change a game on really both ends of the floor. Sucks it didn't really work out, especially down the stretch there at Arkansas. I think once things played out the way they did down the stretch, we could see maybe the writing on the wall. It's weird because we just talked about this, but just an hour ago, John brought up a chat about Big Z, and you used the word indifferent. And it's not that means we don't care about Big Z or we don't care what he does, but it really didn't change the big picture feel of what Arkansas needed to accomplish in the transfer portal or what they needed to do this offseason in building this roster. With or without Big Z, you needed to go out there and get a legit 5-man. That still remains the case. And so we'll see what happens with Big Z. Like you said, this is the first big domino to fall, but I don't think this is the type of move or really the type of player that changes the way you view this entire roster. And I think if there's a silver lining for Hog fans, which I'm sure there are a few for some that probably weren't as big of fans of Big Z's game, he's the type of piece, he's a unique piece where even when you have him, it's like, okay, but you still probably need a more physical center. You still kind of probably need this. He's such a weird player where you don't really know exactly what you're going to get out of him. Whereas if you have a guy like a DJ Wagner, who's like a legitimate guard, you kind of know what you're getting there. You can kind of do the pieces of, all right, well, if we have him, then we need this. And if we have this, then we need that and all that. Big Z's such a weird anomaly where with or without him, you don't really have a ton of clarity. And so I think if there's a silver lining, it kind of makes it clear where Arkansas will need to assess their resources in the portal. Certainly going to need some wings still, but they definitely have more questions to answer in the front court for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, with Big Z, it's a situation where it's fair to be upset about the departure when you think about the upside that he has. I mean, the ceiling is extremely high. There's not many 7'2" guys who possess the skill set that he has. I mean, we saw some of those incredible games that he had where he was just knocking down 5-6 threes a game. And at times he looks like such a great passer and he was getting it going in the post a little bit. Very offensively gifted guy, but also as good as he can be as a rim protector, he's a very matchup dependent type of player on the defensive end. Struggled to grab defensive rebounds, struggled with physicality in the paint. And so if you're Arkansas, you probably are going into the offseason thinking along the lines of, hey, you know what, man, we would still love to continue to develop him, see if we can get him to maximize that potential. But because of the ups and downs and the inconsistencies there, you can't put all your eggs in that particular basket. Like you said, you're going to need more regardless. And now you're going to need a lot more because you're going to have to fill out that entire front court. But it's, I love Big Z, and it was always fun to talk to him in the locker room a number of times at the NCAA tournament. A good dude and a very talented player with a very specific skill set. And, it was crazy how at the beginning of the year, he kind of carried Arkansas in a lot of ways in the front court with Jonas hurt and TB trying to figure some things out. And then he went through a stretch where you barely saw him. And he was kind of, frankly, unplayable. And then he had the breakout games. What do you have the huge games against? I think Kentucky and Texas and Alabama. He had some big ones there where he really teed off on those guys. And then by the end of the year, it really fell off again. So wherever he goes, hope that he finds consistency, hope that he finds a role in a place that suits him, and wish him all the best because there's NBA upside in Big Z's game. Now, where is he headed? Interestingly enough, I mean, for like the last 2 months, we started to hear a lot of rumblings about, maybe he actually does want to play with his brother, Tomislav. And for a while there, the thought process was, oh, well, Tomislav's just going to come to Arkansas. Well, maybe he's going to Illinois. And if he is, maybe they're just trading big men, because Illinois big man Morez Johnson, who played alongside his brother Tomislav, is in the portal. Arkansas is heavily pursuing him. And maybe it's just a straight up trade. And honestly, if that winds up being the case, I could live with that, because I'm a big fan of Morez Johnson, the basketball player. We'll see a lot of other big guys out there. They're going to have to get more than one, but interesting to see how this is kind of played out here.
Yeah, I certainly would sign up for that trade. Not to say that I think Morez Johnson's way better, but it's just like from a fit standpoint, from a this Arkansas team needs standpoint, I think he makes sense. You kind of need that bigger, more traditional, bigger guy. You mentioned TB there being Trevin Brazil. He's another guy that as soon as you see Big Z's name, that's kind of one of the first guys that came to mind for me. They're different players. Like, they're not the same exact skill set, not the same exact everything, but of the same kind of ilk of a kind of a stretch five, a modern big man that can shoot the three and provide that spacing. Also can do some shot blocking on the other end. I kind of felt this way going into the year, where I was like, is there really room for both of these guys to thrive and be successful at the same time? And I think we kind of learned this year, maybe not, because both those guys had their moments. Both those guys had their success. And like I said, not the exact same player, but it was very rare where you got both of those guys playing well in the same game, really only a couple games here and there. And so now my attention goes fully to TB of, is he going to come back? Is he going to kind of fill that void and be that stretch guy? And if so, I mean, we saw a lot of great flashes with Trevin down the stretch. In a way, they kind of had a little bit of a seesaw going on, where as Big Z started to fade, Trevin started to step to the forefront. And we'll await his decision, as well as a few other Razorbacks on this roster. But when I think about what this Razorback team is going to need, we keep saying they need a traditional big man. And that was always the case. And it's still true. But it was always with the pretense of they've got some bigs that have the shot making and the floor spacing. Trevin certainly fits that criteria. And so I think with Big Z going out, I think it's even more important now that Arkansas is able to get something going with Trevin Brazil or someone of that kind of mold.
Yeah, for sure. You got to have the stretch guy. And honestly, one of the bigger priorities, the two biggest priorities, I guess, for Arkansas going into the offseason before we know what retention would even look like, was going to be adding, some beef and defensive rebounding and that enforcer physicality type of big man. And then shooting, 3-point shooting from anywhere. Well, then now you lose one of your better 3-point shooters on the roster. In fact, let's see, Big Z did lead the team in 3-point percentage at 37%. And he was second on the team in makes. He had 47 makes. John L. Davis actually wound up making 57 threes on the year and leading the team. Didn't look like that was going to be a thing for a while there. But such a unique guy at his position. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I think it kind of increases the urgency for getting Trevin back, or a guy like that, because you want somebody who can space the floor for you in the front court. It doesn't have to be at the center spot. It can be at the 4, and it gives you room for a big body who can bang in there on the block to operate a little bit more. And that's where Arkansas's offense, I thought, really took off. When Thero went down, Trevin came in, started knocking down some threes. You have to defend him differently. And all of a sudden you see a Jonas Adu who's really able to start getting down on the block and going to work in there and finishing around the rim. I think the same thing could also be said about kind of the continuity that Big Z had with the dude Thero. When Big Z was going off and he was knocking down a bunch of threes, it draws that big man out of the paint. And all of a sudden there's more driving lanes and opportunities for a guy like Thero around the rim. So whether it's the 4 or the 5, it just feels like you need one of them that can space out the floor and shoot a little bit. And I imagine Arkansas will wind up getting that done here at some point.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times, we see that we've seen the stretch bigs at Arkansas and everybody's like, oh, they need a bruiser. And that's 100% true. But I still kind of like having that floor spacing. I still like having that versatility on the offensive end from one of your front court guys. And so I definitely think whether it's Trevin, whether it's just a Duke Thero coming back, whether it's, the Yaxel kid in the portal, whether it's whatever, Arkansas is definitely going to need some type of 4 or 5 man with some of that versatility. And it's interesting. I feel a little bit bad about how I'm trying to be careful about how I word this with Big Z. I'm not saying this is a nothing burger, like this means nothing, but it's weird because we've been waiting for that first domino to fall. That's what we've been kind of saying, is we're waiting for this whole thing to get going. We have a better idea of who's coming back, who's leaving. I feel like this Big Z one is one that was less pressing, because I think we kind of agreed. You said the term indifferent earlier on the show. Like, I don't think this offseason and this roster construction is going to be made or broken by Big Z and his decision. Weirdly enough, I kind of view him in the context of like icing on a cake, where he's the type of player that can provide you some lifts in a few, but he's not necessarily a guy you have in the starting lineup and you know for sure you're getting X, Y, and Z. He's kind of a, better as a supporting cast player that just kind of adds on. And like you said, in certain matchups can really lift you. I still think when you look about this Arkansas roster and what they're going to build, you just need some dependable skill sets that hey, this guy, he averages, 12 and 8. We know what we're getting. This is what we got. Here he is. He's plugged in here. And so Big Z, for all his, the pros that he has and all the skill sets that he has, you really didn't have that with him, where you kind of knew what he was and how he'd fit in with other players. And so I think, as we move forward, it'll be interesting to see, of course, once you get the first domino, now we need that second one. I'm really interested to see if that next domino ends up being Arkansas adding a front court player, Arkansas retaining a front court player. And, in the backcourt, there's also a few questions that we still need to get sorted out as well. And so this is a nice start. This is a good way to kind of kick off this whole thing, give us a little bit more clarity as to what type of roster Arkansas is going to have moving forward. But I'll be interested to hear what Hog fans say. I haven't had time to check Twitter and see the temperature of the fan base, but I don't think this is going to be a move that Hog fans are like devastated about. I feel like you and I defended Big Z a good bit. I think a lot of people understand that this is a move that Arkansas can certainly circumnavigate and find ways to build an effective roster outside of them.
Yeah, I think, and so far, and folks, we'll get to the chats here in a few minutes, but it kind of seems like people are taking it in stride here. I think everybody appreciated Big Z, but I think you're right. I think they kind of understood the limitations and the strengths that he brought to the table, and there's probably a feeling out there that Arkansas can maybe get some better fits for what they're looking for there in the front court, especially at that particular position. You just need a little bit more consistency and more of a sure thing. And man, I really think that there's probably a little bit of your last two NCAA tournament games. You gave up a combined 50 offensive rebounds. So looking at that and going, goodness, great. Can we just get somebody in here who could gobble up defensive boards? I think people will be a lot more excited about the potential of that. But yeah, a good season for Z. He was better in most categories, played more minutes than he did at Kentucky as a true freshman. I know that was a weird year because he kind of came in halfway through the year with that eligibility situation that he had, but 8.5 points and 4.3 rebounds for Big Z. He had 66 block shots, and that is that's notable. It's about 2 a game there, which is good, and then shot at 37% from 3. So, yeah, the first domino falls. And you're right about the rest of the retention here. You kind of felt like going in this, if Arkansas could pull up, with 3 to 4 of these guys to come back, you really, really feel good about where this is headed. So now you look at the other decisions that have to be made, and you got, obviously, Boogie Fland is still out there. We're kind of assuming draft for him. We were assuming that for Adu Thero as well, and it sounds like the potential for a return at least is on the table, when I just didn't think that was in the cards at all. We'll see what actually happens there. But then Carter Knox and Billy Richmond and who else? Trevin Brazile. So you get 3 or 4 of those guys back, and you're in a pretty good spot. We talked about it on Inside Arkansas Live, and I think Carter Knox is probably at the very tip top of that list for me. I think he's got star power if he comes back next season. I love the idea of a year 2 Billy Richmond in there. And honestly, if I had to prioritize elsewhere, like if you were only to pick one more, I think there's a healthy debate to be had there. I might lean, especially with Zegon, Trevin over DJ Wagner, and then the 2 draft potential guys. If you get them back, it's like icing on the cake kind of deal for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Trevin's the name that just keeps circling in my mind. Where we felt good about his chances to return. We kind of got the nice vibes there, where we think, hey, this might be a guy Arkansas could retain, and certainly I think it'd be in their best interest and his best interest for both parties to run it back for another year. With Z out, I think that importance definitely goes up. And so, like earlier today, I would have said, like you said, I would have said Carter, DJ, and then Trevin. I might be switching that just because of now you do kind of need that front court presence. And again, I know everyone is dead set on like, hey, Arkansas needs a true traditional 5-man. And I agree wholeheartedly. I think that also Trevin Brazil is still a piece they need. I still think they need that spacing. And I also am just intrigued to see what a full year of Trevin being healthy and knowing who he is and all that looks like. And so I hope we get some clarity soon, because the longer this stretches out, the longer I'm going to start to get nervous and be like, oh crap, do they need to go get someone else? Do they need to go get some young up and coming stretch four or something like that? I would love to get that Trevin domino just out of the way and locked up real quick.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get to the chat and roll through these. And again, folks, we're going to pretty much cover this type of stuff the exact way that we did during football season, where something happens, like a notable departure, somebody announces they're coming back, Arkansas gets a portal pop, whatever. We're going to go live and break it down all in real time, and then probably double back the next morning on the Pod at the Palace, whatever, for a little bit more in depth at what it means and everything. But this is kind of an immediate reaction, so let's see what folks have to say in the chat here. I mean, right away, like Dalton's he's not even messing around with it. He's like, I get it. Yaxel Lindborg, you are an Arkansas Razorback. I hope so. I mean, he entered the portal like an hour ago. Coincidence that Z hits the portal right after? I don't know. No, it's not a coincidence at all. Yaxel's the real deal. I think he's definitely the best front court player that is available in the portal right now in terms of talent and fit and just overall production, because there are guys like Morez Johnson and Flory Badunga and others who are super, super high upside, but they haven't made that leap yet. Like, you're looking for that freshman to sophomore leap. Yaxel's a dude who's averaged a double-double for multiple years and can stretch it out and shoot threes. That would be cool. Arkansas's got the money to get him, but a lot of folks are going to be after that dude for sure. Have you watched him play much?
I watched him. So he had a game in the conference tournament a couple weeks ago where he had like 30, 20, and 8 or like something crazy. Stupid. Like, he puts up some crazy. You know what's crazy, Curtis? He's a triple-double threat is what he is. Because what he averaged assists? He averaged over 4 assists a game, I'm pretty sure. Like, they run offense through him. That kid is he's the exact type of guy who's like overqualified. He's a borderline NBA prospect. I think he even said he's going to test the waters there. I'll be interested to see if he ends up going that route. But he strikes me as the perfect kind of guy who's like overqualified as a college player, but maybe not necessarily going to have a great pro career. But in a college basketball, 4 or 5 year guy like that, he's a big time player at any level.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And just getting a few messages and things here in real time, and from a place that I trust, it sounds like, and we've confirmed that Arkansas is going to be a player in the game for Morez Johnson, who we just talked about, the Illinois big man, 6'9", 255 pounds, just a monster on the glass. He plays with ferocity and violence and physicality. I think he's really due for a big leap. According to a source here, Arkansas has got a 7-figure offer on the table for him. So they're serious about Morez Johnson there. We'll see what the rest of the market shapes up as, but that would be a nice get if Arkansas is able to do it. Hell, get them both. I don't care. It's not my money. Tyson's got plenty of it, man. Just go get them all.
Yeah, just make it work. But Morez Johnson, I mean, he fits the exact type of criteria that I feel like Hog fans have been saying for months now. Go get a big guy. Go get a big, strong, traditional 5. Checks all those boxes.
Yeah, no, he absolutely does. I just wanted to pull up real quick his game log and see if he did anything crazy this season. I want to go back and see what he did against Arkansas. For some reason, I felt like he got in maybe a little bit of foul trouble. 6 points, 4 rebounds. He only played 14 minutes in that game against Arkansas. Now his front court mate Tomislav was working over his brother that entire game. So that was interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, he had a 20-point game against Penn State, 15-9 against Northwestern. Did he get a double-double in here? Yeah, 14 points, 15 boards against Ohio State. So he had some nice games and mixed in there. 17 against a Michigan State team that nearly made the Final Four. A nice player, big physical body, averaged about 7 points and 7 rebounds per game as a true freshman there at Illinois, which we know is a good team. They beat the brakes off of Arkansas. So there you go.
The rim protection's interesting with Morez Johnson. I mean, he averaged a little over a block a game, like not a number that's going to jump off the page at you, but he played 17 minutes a game. He was kind of one of those bigs, and it was matchup to matchup. I think that's a guy that, with Big Z, by the way, who, like you mentioned, had 67 blocks. 67 blocks, yeah. That's a rim protection void that he's leaving. And Trevin Brazil is a guy that can block some shots here and there. I think Morez Johnson, that's what intrigues me with him, is kind of doing all the things. And what I also love is he's not a guy you're going to have to run offense for it all. He's just, everything he does is just in the flow of the game. And so he's the type of guy that you can add that will not have any type of negative effect on anyone else on your roster. He's going to do the things that Arkansas's needed someone to do and that no one else wants to do, frankly.
Right. Yeah. My ideal situation at the 5, now that you know you need to add multiples, get a dude like that who's just big, physical, tough, will push you around, and then get one of those super long, freaky athletes who can really play above the rim and impact some things there as a big time lob threat. We'll see if they get it done. I'm sure they will. Phil says, best of luck to Big Z. I think that's good for all involved. You might be right. And best of luck to Z for sure. Will we look back? Will it be like a revisionist history, hindsight is 2020 situation if he goes somewhere else and just completely pops and takes off and becomes an all-league guy? Yeah, maybe there will be some of that, but I think it also depends on how Arkansas goes about replacing him and filling out their front court too. Because if he balls out, but then you also bring in some guys and your front court situation gets better and you're tougher on the glass and you got good players in there, then you can just be happy for him as opposed to doing the dang, what if kind of situation that you hope to avoid really any time a talented player transfers out of your program.
100%.
And we didn't have that many guys transfer who were like impact players at the time from Eric Musselman. If you really think about it, like who were those guys? I mean, last year the whole team transferred, but so did he. But before that, it was usually just guys who, frankly didn't really play. So,
right.
Let's see. From BTC Pack says Big Z didn't want to play in the paint. We need someone down low. He's going to find a great fit for him. I mean, I think he obviously preferred to shoot that 3 ball, but I do think it would be a little bit short-sighted to say, I don't know about that he didn't want to play in the paint, but he did make improvements down there in the paint, down the back half of the season. They were turning to him and going down there and feeding him. In fact, in that game at home against Texas, where they made that big comeback and sent it to overtime, Arkansas kept feeding Z on the block, and he was working out on him, which is not something in any way I would have expected Arkansas to be doing in crunch time in earlier games. So he did make some improvements in there. Just, physicality is, I think it's just always going to be a weakness or certainly not a strength for him. I mean, he can get in the weight room and add some muscle or whatever, but if it's not in your DNA, it's not necessarily in your DNA. And I think it's always going to be something he's got to work through.
Yeah. I mean, and again, going back to Morez Johnson, just could not be like, he's like almost the exact opposite of Big Z from a skill set standpoint and from a body type standpoint. And so if you want a big, strong guy, that would be one. He would check that box.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I like this from Homer Hodgson. Says the season of impromptu streams. Yep, we're back. It's there's gonna be a lot of that for sure. Sharkensaw says Z would fit better as a stretch 4 rather than a 5. Or a stretch 5, you know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of, I think what we were talking about is if you got one guy who's in your front court that's a little bit more finesse, that spaces the floor as a shooter, then you need kind of the opposite at the other end of the front court. So we could call it whatever we want. To me, I always think about what can you guard when I think about guys positionally, and Z can barely guard a 5 who can put it on the floor, much less a 4-man who might be way more athletic and more capable off the bounce. But I get what you're saying, especially from the offensive side of things. His foot speed, lateral quickness, ability to operate as a defender in ball screens, all things he's got to improve significantly wherever he winds up for sure. Wondering about this. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. David, he says this leaves an opening for TB if Adu gets his bag. And so now going into the day, I was kind of wondering, well, if something happened and Adu wasn't enticed by a more significant NIL offer to stay at Arkansas and his draft stock is slipping a little bit. If he came back, what does that mean for Trevin? Because it's pretty clear the difference when Adu went down and Trevin had more opportunity. It's not Trevin doesn't like Adu or he doesn't want to play with Thero or anything like that. It's an opportunity thing. With Z out of the equation, if they just wanted Trevin to kind of serve as that, hey, you get the rest of Thero's minutes at the 4, and then we can carve out some for you in, just small ball situations where you can space it at the 5 and you still got your 20 plus minutes per game or whatever. Now I can see a pathway to that being a more realistic possibility, is having both of them back and it working.
There's some controversy in the chat about what entails a stretch 5. Because I see some people being like, he's not a stretch 5, he can't dribble. I see some saying he's not a stretch 5, he can't guard the perimeter. When we say stretch 5, by the way, we mean a big man that shoots threes. That's
Right.
what a stretch 5 is. A
Correct.
center that spaces the floor on offense. And like you said, Curtis, the question anytime whether it's 4 or 5 is, can he guard? But I see a bunch of people going back and forth about what a stretch 5 is. We mean a big man that shoots threes.
I hate the positional arguments. You know what I mean? All the time. This guy a 3, is he a 4, whatever. Well, it kind of depends on what style you play, right? Some teams play 4 guards and you just have a bigger guard that can play the 4. That doesn't mean he's a power forward. And I mean, all those things are taken into account. If he's not a stretch 5 because he can't defend on the perimeter, is he a stretch 4? Because he damn sure ain't gonna be able to defend one of those. It's just, like it's semantics. It doesn't matter.
It's all about skill sets, really. I mean, really, you just have to have your 5 guys. It's like, hey, if this guy can't guard the post, well, you need somebody that can. If this guy can't shoot threes, well, you need somebody that can. And those 5 positions, I mean, at this point in basketball, we are full on. There is no such thing as positions. We're guard forward around here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Finch says, wonder what happened. He came with Cal because he didn't give up on him. So he wasn't going to give up on Cal this year. Yeah, I really don't think that we have to do the where did it all go wrong conversation here. I don't think that there always has to be, like bad blood or relationships went south or anything like that. The truth of the matter is, by the end of the year, Jonas had overtaken Big Z for a lot of reasons. Z's minutes went down. And there was frustration throughout the season on trying to get him to play more consistently, which just was an issue for. I mean, it just was a thing that they needed from him, and he probably just wants to change of scenery. Like I don't think there was a whole bunch of butting of heads, or they got to the end of the year and it was like screw you, no screw you. I think that they probably were just having to look at him, and you have those conversations about here's what you gave us, here's what we need, here's what we're bringing in, and this is what we can do for you in NIL. And he probably thinks he can go do better and be a better situation elsewhere. I think it's that simple, really. I don't sense a lot of bad blood or, soured relationships or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a real controversy or conspiracy here. I think it's just kind of, we saw how it played in terms of what happened. We saw how it played out. He, kind of got phased out down the stretch. Wasn't necessarily a great fit for what Arkansas was trying to do in March. And he'll be on to greener pastures. I think it'll work out for both parties. I really do.
I think so too. And then David here, he says, how do you guys feel about the relationship between Cal and TB? Is it strong, or does TB have a little told you so in him? Well, TB has had some told you so in him since the summer. If you guys recall that, where Cal walked up to him and was like, hey man, you're better than I thought you were. And he was like, yeah, I told you that I was. That's part of it. I do think that it's a good mesh in terms of how Cal coaches and the way he leans in on his players and supports them and tries to keep them upbeat and positive, as opposed to the doom and gloom and screaming at you and telling you suck that, Eric Musselman did. And there's like a time and place for all that. To me, it's about, for Trevin, like, you got to do what's best for yourself. And some of that could be the comfort of being at Arkansas, kind of leaning on the confidence boost that you got down the stretch of the season with how well you played. All that stuff factors in. I'm sure he would get a raise from an NIL standpoint too. But at the end of the day, like if a Dude Thero comes back, are you going to have the minutes? Are you going to have the opportunity? You're going to have the role. And that's something that he's got to consider there. But no, I think their relationship is probably fine.
Yeah, I think it's definitely pretty solid. I mean, I always think back to Cal being like, you're better than I thought you were. I told you that. You're better than I thought you were. And there's definitely a little bit of that. I mean, frankly, if you're a TB and if you're coaching a player like that, you kind of want him to have a little bit of that edge of like hey, I'm going to show you how good I am. I'm going to show you I can help this team. And credit to Trevin, who found a way to help the team. And so I don't think that's something that like pissed Cal off. I think Cal was probably like happy. He's like, hey, thanks for helping my basketball team win, And so I think another offseason would also help. And obviously, it's going to play out one way or another. They're going to have their meeting. They're going to have probably multiple conversations. They'll come out of the other end of that, either deciding to run it back or not. And so I think we'll be able to learn a lot about that real soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just real quick on this one from Robert. He says, hey, you heard anything about the kid that's supposed to announce tomorrow? Yeah, we talked about it on Inside Arkansas Live today. I understand you probably weren't able to listen, but Nate Ament, the McDonald's All-American, a lot of folks thought he might announce around that game, which is tomorrow. He said earlier today that he's not ready to make that announcement. He hopes that it comes soon, whatever. So that is delayed. Arkansas still in the mix there, maybe more so than a lot of national folks are giving them credit for. But we'll see. And there's no like set on timeline for him to make his announcement. I know this is one that's been dragging out for a long time, and it seems like he just kind of keeps making the rounds between the contenders there, Arkansas and Duke and Louisville, and the price tag continues to go up. So we'll see what winds up happening there. But that announcement is not expected to come tomorrow.
By the way, before I see you build up the other chat,
yeah.
I mean, he's at the McDonald's All-American game with players from everywhere, players that are committed to different schools, a couple of Hogs, obviously. Like this kind of stuff, like we'd be stupid to not think like it's literally playing out as we speak. Like those guys are probably eating McDonald's right now together, talking about, hey man, if you came to Arkansas, hey man, if you came to Duke, hey man, like these conversations are playing out, and so we'll just see.
Yeah. From Ryan, he says news on DJ, unless it's happened in the last 31 minutes since we started this. No, but here's the thing with DJ Wagner. There won't be any news unless he enters the transfer portal and his name pops up in the portal and these recruiting guys see it and tweet it out, because like he didn't even make a formal announcement or tell Tipton or any of those guys when he committed to Arkansas. Even it's like he's just not that kind of guy. So like if he's staying, I'm not sure that I would necessarily anticipate him coming out and being like, yo, I'm running it back. It's just not really his style. He's not really that big of a social media guy. If he's leaving, I doubt that he's going to do anything like that either. It would just eventually, like his name pops up in the portal, he becomes available, and we would hear about it. So no, nothing on that. And honestly, that's he is probably the one that I have the least amount of feel on in terms of how this is going to go, because for a while there, I heard that it was really trending towards another year of DJ at Arkansas. And then there's also been a lot of scuttle since about the start of the SEC tournament that he might be looking to go elsewhere and just kind of get a fresh start and a different look, and just kind of hand the keys over to those talented freshmen that are coming in. They're going to need a veteran ball handler regardless. I think it should be DJ, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see what that looks like.
Another thing is he's not going to just decide to play for Arkansas for free 99. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I know it sounds tough, and it's like we don't want to talk about it sometimes, but retaining players is not a free adventure. And so DJ's a guy that, former 5-star recruit. I'm sure his stock has fallen a little bit from that, but I would imagine would still have many suitors that would be willing to line his pockets.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Our man Dre, we appreciate the super chat. He says, not concerned with Z leaving. And and I don't think anybody should be concerned about it. So I'm kind of with you on that. Do you wish he would come back, or, like wish you could see it out, think he could get better at everything? Like all those things are certainly on the table, but not a backbreaker, whether you had an affinity for Big Z, which I did, or not. Kentucky Life is in here, said he would be great in Mark Pope's system.
So I agree with this statement. One, I mean, like, in fact, we saw a lot of Kentucky fans talking about that when we were in Lexington. They were like, man, kind of would have been nice to keep Z. I saw a bunch of Kentucky fans in this very chat that were like, as long as he doesn't come to Kentucky, I'm good. We hate that kid. And so I thought that was funny, but like, weirdly enough, if you're thinking about a program in college basketball that would make a lot of sense for Z, it actually would be Kentucky.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I don't think it would help their defensive issues that they're dealing with necessarily, but boy, he would get a ton of open looks for three. It just make them infinitely harder to guard, and they already are. So
you want to go to a place that won't bench you for being bad at defense, Big Z? Go to Kentucky. Mark Pope, by the way, huge fan of Z. Was asked about him earlier this year. He's like, yeah, I think I like Z more than he like me.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot that they met with each other before Z officially made the trek over to Arkansas. So that's interesting for sure. Just pulling up a few other random chats here, and then we'll get out of here. But from Antonio says, what other portal options is Cal looking at? And we mentioned a handful here in terms of the front court guys. Morez Johnson being a big name in there. I'm almost positive that they're going to be involved with Yaxel. He's only been in the portal for about an hour, so we'll still have to wait and get confirmation on that. Nick Pringle, big man who was at Alabama, who's at South Carolina this past year, got a lot better. Speaking of Big Z, he worked Big Z over in that game at South Carolina. Arkansas has been in touch with him. So a handful of names in the big man front. Then you got a lot of wings. You think about Keyshawn Hall out of UCF. Abdi Bashir, the knockdown shooter from Monmouth. Those are guys that Arkansas has got Zoom scheduled with over the course of the next couple days. Lamar Wilkerson, obviously the Ashdown native from Sam Houston State. That's one that Arkansas has been in there on for a while. A number of names. And again, like my eyes are on the guys who are knockdown shooters and are the guys who can play the 5 right now, because those are just the things for sure that you're going to need. And for the rest of it, to really identify priorities and everything like that, we kind of got to wait and see who's coming back, because they could need anywhere from 2 to 3 guys out of the portal to 4 or 5, depending on how this shakes out. We just really don't know quite yet. Oh man. Well, here we are. I've been I'm honestly surprised that we didn't get anything, over the course of the weekend, or like while we were traveling back from San Francisco or whatever. I'm honestly glad that this happened before I pack up the car and drive to Little Rock. I'm sure another one will pop as I'm on my way, because that's just the way that it always goes. But it does. I wish it was an addition, but it kind of feels good to get the ball rolling a little bit. And in terms of this offseason, because I know everybody's super anxious to see how they're going to, rebuild the roster coming off of a Sweet 16 and what this thing is going to look like. And if they've got the potential to do more moving forward. My educated guess is that, yes, we're going to be very happy with the finished product, but it's going to take a while until we see what it looks like.
The thing about dominoes, Curtis, they're one at a time. That's
how
it works. And sometimes you have the domino that immediately knocks over the next one. Sometimes it kind of lingers and then it knocks over the other one. It might take a little bit, but we got the first domino out of the way. We get a little bit of clarity. And I'm surprised. I thought there was totally going to be I was kind of checking Twitter. I was like, I bet you something else stupid happens, because these things do seem to come in bunches sometimes. But yeah, we got the ball rolling. That's all we needed.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Let's do a guess real quick. Who is the next Razorback to announce their intentions on stay or go?
President Carter.
I like that. I hope you're right. I would sleep so much better at night if he just came out and was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm running it back, yo."
He's just going to post a one-word statement back.
I like that. We will definitely on our Inside Arkansas socials post that exact statement.
Yeah,
if he does it. John's been all over the.
Obviously, On3 started it.
Yeah,
but John has started kind of making fun of that. I've been seeing an uptick in the returning and portaled and back posts since John started. I mean, he got a lot of crap for it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see that. Did you just see that? Hang on, did I read this right? Oklahoma basketball has hired Trae Young as an assistant general manager.
What?
And he's also donating $1 million to their.
You mean he's the one who's middle of his NBA career, Trae Young?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is very interesting. That is very interesting. Okay. Who could Arkansas do that with? Joe Johnson or something? Bobby P?
Bobby, but
he ain't doing nothing right now. He's chilling. So
hey, just hanging out. Yeah, get Bobby P in here.
I want to pull this up from Ryan. He says everyone's high on TB right now, but remember how completely inefficient he was for 70% of the season. It is amazing how these things change, like the ebbs and flows over the course of the year, because there was a stretch early on in the season where we were seeing things that we just hadn't seen from TB in the past, like with his motor, his aggressiveness, his willingness to be a defender on the perimeter. And we were pretty intrigued by that. And for long stretches during the SEC season, he was really struggling. I mean, he is maybe the poorest performance of his career at Auburn in that game that you had an opportunity to win down there. And he really struggled. You saw a lot of that. And then, Thero goes down, you need somebody to step up. And it turns out it was as easy as just plugging TB in and letting him play. So that is the thing to consider there. As good as he was the last 6, 7, 8 games of the season or whatever, that is the guy that you would need to get consistently if you're going to really, just kind of go all in on him, like push the chips at the table and, maybe not go as hard after a surefire starter. You go out there and get a platoon guy with him or whatever. I get it. The inconsistency stuff is there. We're kind of riding on the high of what we saw, but yeah, I mean, I think it's at least worth bringing up and mentioning that. Yeah. It was the last stretch of the season, but there were times where we were really wondering if he should even be on the floor for Arkansas when they had 7 players available. So I get it for sure.
Well, and look, the thing is, I mean, Cal said it, we've said it, we've all known this about TB. It's all between the years, obviously. and it's a little bit also of a chicken and egg, whereas like he was playing bad and his minutes were low. Were his minutes low because he was bad, or was he bad because his minutes were low? I think you can, if you look at his game log, it's pretty clear when you play him over 20, 25 minutes, he plays his best basketball. And I know that kind of sucks because he has to earn his way on the floor, but like, I think once he kind of flipped that switch and started getting consistent minutes, he was great. And so I know the idea of bring Trevin off the bench and have him be a 12, 15-minute spark plug, that sounds good, but I think for him and his skill set and kind of what he needs to do, his mentality, you kind of just have to let him eat. And he really, I know everybody says, oh, he's so inconsistent. When he started playing consistent minutes down the stretch, he wasn't that inconsistent. Like in the last 15 games, when he played consistent minutes, it wasn't this anymore. It was pretty steady at that 8 to 10 points, 7, 8 rebounds. I'm not saying he guaranteed is going to be awesome next year, but I would be pretty surprised if they ran it back with Trevin and he was a starting power forward and he wasn't pretty good.
Yeah. We just need him to work on those free throws a little bit, and he'd be good to go. Trevin Brazil, man. But I'm all for it, man. If they're able to get him back, and in fact, I encourage them highly to go ahead and do that. So, all right, just a couple more chats, and then we'll get out of here for the day. From Jeff, he says, "Is there any news about the kid from Arkansas that plays at Sam Houston?" What you can't say his name, bro? I mean, come on.
You don't like Wilkerson?
Wilkerson. Come on, man. No, he said heard Cal made contact with him as well. Yeah, of course Cal's made contact. Arkansas has made contact with him before he even entered the portal. Like this has been a long, drawn out thing with Lamar Wilkerson. But hey, you enter the transfer portal and all of a sudden your phone rings and it's and you're one of the prolific shooters in the country, and you hear from Nate Oates. You probably listen to that call, and then you hear from John Shire over at Duke. You probably listen to that call also. You listen to Bruce Pearl when he calls you. And then all of a sudden, you kind of have an idea in your mind of, yeah, this is kind of what I'm looking for in NIL. And I'm trying to transfer up. This will be great. And then there becomes a bidding war. And so it's been a little bit more of a process, I think, than folks anticipated. Who all is, I think, like Auburn and Kansas or something that he's talked to, and he's visiting SMU or something on an unofficial or whatever. Arkansas is in there for sure. Cal is going to have to be the guy that really pulls the trigger here, puts the final offer on the table and says, yo, let's get you in here and get this thing done. And I feel like if he wants to do that, then Lamar Wilkerson will be a Razorback. And if he decides they like somebody else better or whatever the case may be, which early on, it didn't seem like that was the case because they've been pursuing Lamar for a while, but the portal fills out, man, with different names, and they're evaluating all these guys at the same time. So it's very fluid. But I do get the hunch that if Arkansas decides they want to go all in on Lamar Wilkerson, they'll get him. And I would hope that is something that takes place here pretty soon. I know that he wants to kind of wrap things up around the Final Four and kind of get into decision-making mode. That way he's done with it and he's enjoying the process right now. Would be very surprised if we don't hear about a visit or, a Zoom or, hell, he's in Ashdown, the staff can go see him, something along those lines. If we don't hear about that this week, then my antennas will really go up about, maybe they're kind of moving in a different direction. I am nowhere near there right now, personally.
You mentioned going all in. How much easier is it to go all in when you have some of your other roster pieces kind of set? Big Z, or not Big Z, Trevin's coming back. Carter Knox is coming back. Billy maybe. DJ, if you get some of these things sorted out, but if you have to account for 7 roster spots, it's a lot harder to pull the trigger and go all in on one guy compared to if you have maybe 3 or 4 transfers that you're going after. Not too hard to go after one guy there.
For sure. I wanted to pull this up from James. He says, I think some players are putting their names in the portal just to see what their options are. Anyone who goes in the portal is trying to see what their options are, but I'm picking up what you're putting down. Sometimes guys will go in the portal to see if they can get a bag. Sometimes it's literally just to leverage a raise from the school that they're currently at. Like you will see guys who enter the transfer portal who wind up going right back to where they came from. And that's just kind of part of the deal right now. And so you got to be calculated about the way that you talk about this. You know what I mean? And we kind of talked about how on Inside Arkansas Live, we were like, it wouldn't be surprising at all if we had to do the Braylon Russell thing with one of these basketball players. Oh, he's out of here. All right, well, fine. It's not really that big of a loss. And he comes back and then you got to go live again and go, hey, actually he's back, and we loved him all along, and so we're so pumped that he's going to be a Razorback again. Wouldn't surprise me if that happened at Arkansas or elsewhere this season. It's just a different type of world that we're living in right now in terms of NIL and agents and all that kind of stuff. It's wild, man. It's just different than how it was even just a couple years ago, for sure.
Yeah. I agree with all that, but I also don't think Big Z just willy-nilly entered the portal. You know what I mean?
I just use him as an example. Like,
I know. I'm not more so
all.
talking to the person who was like, oh, because I saw a couple people who were like, just because he's in the portal doesn't mean he's not coming back. And it's like,
gotcha. Yeah,
sure. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is that situation.
Right. For sure. From the student section, she says, don't worry, guys. I've been DMing some players on our team, convincing them to return. I'm the reason DJ will be back. Well, if you're the reason that DJ Wagner will be back, shout out to you. We appreciate that for sure. All right. See, this happens every time. Witty, you got us. Super chat. It says, back in my day, a true stretch 5 was the funny girl in art class. Woo pig suey. Witty.
Yeah, come on, Witty. We appreciate you, though.
Yeah, we do. We always do. We're out of here. We've done enough. 46 minutes on the Big Z departure. Well, frankly, it was me and you. I feel like we could have gone for 2 hours, but I think this is probably a pretty good time frame here. So
I appreciate you leaving me some room to get bombastic in.
Always room to get bombastic in, and everybody make sure that you tune into that. I'm headed to Little Rock, so if anything happens in the next few hours here, well, John Neighbors has you covered. So enjoy that. But hey, appreciate you guys for tapping in with us. Listen, if you're not subscribed to Inside Arkansas YouTube page, I don't know what you're doing. Now's the time to go ahead and do that. Turn those notifications on for when we do go live, because this type of thing is going to happen several more times over the course of the next few weeks here. But we're out of here. For Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, Pod the Palace, Inside Arkansas. Y'all have a good day. We'll see you next time.